Evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the Benicia Unified School District, May 4th, 2017. May the 4th be with you. All day. This is our open session. And would you all please stand and join us in Pledge Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have everyone had opportunity to look at the agenda, and do we have a motion to approve it?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Our highlight, Superintendent.
Very good. So last year I had an interesting conversation with a student who graduated with us a couple of years prior. And he's a student at UCLA, and he came and had lunch with me. And I said, do you feel that Benicia High School prepared you well for UCLA? He said, yeah, absolutely, except there's one class when I talked to students from around the world that I wished I'd had. And I said, what is that? He said, speech and debate. I said, really? So I went back, talked to the principal, Ms. Kleinschmidt, and then she talked to her staff. And then we have a very wonderful teacher, Ms. Michelle Gaines, who got all very interested in this and decided to take this course on. And we've offered it this year, and we're absolutely excited about what's been taking place with this class. And she's brought two brilliant students with her. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Gaines to the podium and her two students, and they'll give us an update on how the speech and debate class has gone throughout the course of the year. So welcome. Do we have a mic there for him? Oh, okay.
The 11,000 people that watches this that needs to be able to hear you.
Testing.
I just want to share a couple of thoughts with you before my students speak. I'm going to start with a quote. David Brooks, New York Times columnist, who we read a lot in our classes. If you go out there only armed with your own observations and sentiments, you'll surely find yourself on very weak ground. You'll lack the arguments, convictions, and the coherent view of reality that you'll need when challenged by a self-confident opposition. So that's, to me, the power of speech and debate. You have to defend your views, stake a claim, stand your ground, and think on your feet, and get up in front of people and speak, and really, in the course of that, find your own voice. Benicia had wanted a speech and debate club for a long time and tried to implement it, and there were problems with that hopefully we'll overcome now, and that is that the competitions take a lot of time, and we didn't have any teacher, including myself, that was willing to spend weekends in the competitions. But what I was excited to do the class. So we, when the class was offered, I didn't anticipate that I'd have this core of students that would just take the baton and run with it and get excited about, when can we get up there and when can we give our speeches, when can we debate? And you're going to hear from two of them, one of whom next year will be we finally will have a debate club coach, Timmy Knox. He was the president of the debate club, but it just didn't have a lot of support, and we didn't have a class to support it. So this year, with a group of kids that were taking the debate class, he was able to fill his debate, his lunchtime debates, and he took a lot of students from my AP classes. And suddenly we'd had over 30 students participate in lunchtime debates, and they're attended by 60 to 100 Benicia High students. So he would book the rooms, advertise, and you could go in there on a given day, and you're hearing debates like, should America be the world's police? How do the presidential candidates stand on the major issues? And I'm looking and thinking, these kids are all coming in with their lunches and listening to debates on cloning and income inequality and asking questions, very excited about it. The kids that weren't even involved in the debates. So I really feel like this has energized the campus. I feel like it's brought something to the culture that's now only going to grow. In fact, we are going to have a whole week of debates. This is Timmy's finale for the year. We're going to have, and they're mostly a lot of my AP students, including Maddie, are going to be up there 5 full days of lunchtime debates after a Lincoln Douglas debate that Timmy's going to be in with one of our other really wonderful debaters, Jamie Hansel. So because of this, it's grown, and next year we will have that debate club in place with, hopefully, if all works out, Timmy, who's going to be studying locally as our debate coach. We've joined, we're going to be joining a local, well, a California debate group so that we can compete. And as you know, any really vital, academically competitive high school has a vibrant speech and debate club. Benicia High has the students to, with the best of them. We're going to be debating with the best of them. I said, get us in the group with Bishop O'Dowd because they're the best. And we're going to be debating them as well as others. And a lot of the AP students from this year are going to be in my class next year. So really, it's the students who took this and ran with it. And you're going to hear from 2 of them, Michaela Richardson and Timmy, and they're the best as well of Benicia High. So, and if you come down during the lunch, May 22nd.
May 22nd through the 26th, every day at lunch.
Every day at lunch. We're going to have 2-on-2 debates on various issues, and then we also have a Lincoln Douglas debate, our final one with our class, between Timmy and Jamie Hansel. It'll be on gun control, and that'll be second period. But yeah, we like audiences, and it's just kind of exciting to see how this has blossomed. So I don't know who's going first, Kayla or Timmy.
Yep. You always do. So, as my name has already been stated, my name is Timothy Knox. I have Mickey Richardson by my side. Starting last year, I was the president of the debate club. It didn't really take off until the end of last year when I held a debate against my vice president, Matthew Major. It was liberal versus conservative. We talked about a plethora of issues, and we allowed the audience to ask us questions, and that's when the club really started to take off. And then this year, Ms. Gaines had her class, and that allowed for lots of debaters to come up onto the stage. The first debate we had this year was Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, and due to a lack of Trump supporters, me and Matthew Major pretended to be Trump supporters, and we went up against Asia Luhati and my good friend Hunter Dean. Then we had other debates, like my favorite one was should the United States be the world's police, which I participated in. We also debated should the United States establish a basic income, is cultural appropriation appropriate? And we had lots of fun in that. But to the class, we had 2 sets of 2v2 debates. And one of those I debated the Israel and Palestinian conflict. And we argued whether we should push for a 2-state or a 1-state solution. And it was a very fun debate. We had some good debaters. I had Julian Garfield, who's my co-coach in the debate week. Very good debater. And also an excellent improver. Other things we did during the class is we started off the year with monologues. I delivered V's monologue from V for Vendetta, if you've ever seen the movie. The whole thing is V's. Vicky can tell you all about her monologue.
I did a monologue from the Addams Family where I talked about murdering all of my husbands.
Excellent.
A little lighter.
To keep it fun.
Yes, we did. Certainly. And Jamie Hansel, who's the secretary of the debate club and also my rival, for the final of the first semester, we debated who was the better founding father, Thomas Paine or Thomas Jefferson. And I was defending Thomas Paine, so we got a lot into the history of the French Revolution and the American Revolution and what both of those heroes did for each one of their causes. Ms. Gaines gave you a David Brooks quote. I would like to give you a Christopher Hitchens quote. She'll probably smile when I say his name because I always bring him up. I quote him in nearly every one of my speeches. The independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but how it thinks. And that's really the message you can take away from debate. Because a lot of times you won't know what side you're going to get until right before the debate. So you have to be prepared to argue both sides and be prepared to believe both sides. That's what I have. Nikki, do you have any last words?
Well, I don't have any quotes, but just being in the speech and debate class this year and seeing all the good that it's done for all of its students has been amazing. You can tell when you walk into the class that there are kids who are passionate about each debate and they live for the politics and all of that. There's also the kids who are in the class because they genuinely want to be better speakers. And I think that's really cool to see them start at the beginning and just improve throughout the entire year. And the debates and speeches they're able to create are honestly amazing. And I definitely think it'll just keep getting better and better each year. And I'm glad we have it.
Join us for our debate week, May 22nd to 26th. Every day at lunch.
Every day at lunch. Yes.
Every day at lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for them? Or?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say I'm really inspired and impressed, and it sounds like a really great addition. And I mean, it sounds like you guys are practicing and then preparing to be great world citizens and citizens of our community here or wherever you go, and citizens of the world in terms of your ability to think and take both. I think being able to take, like you mentioned, both sides of a perspective and really be thoughtful and be able to articulate your ideas. I mean, I think it's great. So thank you for sharing.
And I just want to again thank Ms. Gaines for stepping forward and taking this on, because it's a challenging class. It's a lot of work, but we really appreciate your effort with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a question, how do you plan to fund travel and the team outside of class? Sorry, I let you sit down. I should have caught you first.
I did today, and I said, I had a note saying, hopefully the doors open for us to go a little further, if we did need some funding. But right now, what we're working on, and Brianna has written, maybe given it to you, I don't know yet, but she's written to, I think, resurrect an old stipend, because since we have a former, he will be a former next year when he graduates, and he's willing to work with the debate club. I thought if we could give him a stipend, he wouldn't need to have another job. That he's really dedicated. He doesn't just throw these debates together at lunch. They meet together in the classroom. So that stipend would, at this point, is for $1,700. Then there would be the traveling to the places. And we would only do the local ones. But, I don't know, fundraising, and we'd have to see. And I think there is some money in the budget at our site to enter into these various organizations that we might need to. But beyond that, we have a dedicated group. Oh, okay. We have a dedicated group of young people, because it turns out that half of those students in next year's speech and debate class are students I have now in my AP English classes. So already they're on board, and they're already debating at lunchroom. So we're hoping the parents maybe will get on board. It is time consuming. It can be time consuming. I don't know if it's real expensive, but the big thing is to be able to get Timmy's time, because he's so passionate and so dedicated. Because frankly, I won't be the one going all day Saturdays. The class is great, but I have 4 other AP classes. So, so we're hoping that we can look to you for if this maybe a little bit of funding to really make this work, because we have some enthusiastic students ready to go. So keep it local, but also I don't know what it'll take, but hopefully we can come back to you if we needed to and get some of that support that we'll need.
Please do.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move to student reports.
Hello, my name is Lauren Kalika. I am freshman president of class of 2020, or right now. So prom was very fun. It happened earlier in May. It was held in San Francisco at the Art Galleria, and the Coachella Rally and Festivals Week went well as well. Yes. The musical was amazing. The 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee was held at in the PAB at April 21st and 23rd. The student versus staff basketball game was last Thursday, and staff won. Echo put on lunch activities for Earth Day on the 21st, and sports are doing well today. There was a forum yesterday for the students. AP testing began this week and goes on till next Friday. And tomorrow we will have Josie's Toesies. Everyone will wear red in support of Mrs. Rooney's daughter Josie, and who has problems with her heart. And yes, that is it. Thank you.
And we have the student from the middle school. Understand it's the principal's best student. She told me that. So we got.
So I'm an 8th grader at BMS, and I'm also in the leadership class. And I was elected BHS Pres for next year, 2021, or our class. And so this weekend we're having Virgil's Wedding. Our advanced drama class is putting on a play. May 18th is our carnival, and it's related to the carnival they have in Rio de Janeiro. I don't know how to pronounce it, but so yeah, we're relating it to that, and you wear neon, and leading up to that day, we're gonna have like certain, I guess not necessarily like flash mobs, but I don't know, and like right now the leadership class is making games for that. And we're also encouraging grade versus grade float building. So whoever, like, I think we're going to have the teachers vote on that, for which float is going to be the best, and it's based on heritages. And yes. So May 21st, we're having the incoming 6th graders come visit the school, and I also believe that leadership is going to show them around. May 22nd through the 26th is state testing. May 25th is open house. It starts at 6 and ends at 7:30. June 6th is the Golden Ribbon Celebration, and that's for Web, Sources of Strength, and PBIS. June 8th is the 8th grade promotion at 1:30, and also the 8th grade dance at 6:30. And June 9th is the 8th grade extravaganza, and they're having like certain things for us to do, like so that we're just filled up all around. So one of them is carnival games, water games, video games. They're playing. I don't know if this is like all the way planned, but they want to have a student versus staff softball or kickball game, lip sync battles, and like a slideshow of the 8th graders and like what they've been through. Yeah.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you very much. So yes, I attended the Putnam County Spelling Bee at the high school, and it was amazing. I went on Sunday, and it was just terrific. And yesterday, Ms. Kleinschmidt and I went over and talked to the kids, and the teacher, and we wanted to congratulate them for doing such a great job. And she brought them pizza and cupcakes. And there's a song in that play where when a student spells the word wrong and they're out of the spelling bee, they sing a song called Goodbye. So it was really cute because before we left, the students said, wait, we want to sing this song to you. So they sang the Goodbye song to Ms. Kleinschmidt and I. So that was the first for us. A couple of items I'd like to run through. We had the BEF run a couple Sundays ago. And that was a terrific event for the community and the school district. And I think they raised upwards of $35,000. And so those are important dollars that come back into our system that help support programs. I keep saying this over and over because it just makes me feel good that I had an opportunity to, one of my primary goals was to beat the chief of police, which I did. He's much younger than I. And I also beat Mr. Scott, our new principal.
Next year's fundraising
That's
is really
right.
like taking bets on who.
I didn't beat him by much, and then I ran so hard I got a cold. I was sick for the rest of the week. So, but it was a great day. So we appreciate you guys. So testing is starting at the elementary school, as it was noted, and I just wanted to point out that what this and the high school. What this test is like, not going into details, but we are living in a new era in public education. The level of sophistication on these questions it's really impressive. And then you look at all the kids and they're doing the whole thing online, as we know. So, you know, in a different era with testing, and I wanted to thank Dr. Beatson and Mr. Jensky and their team for putting that all together in the tech department, because it's a lot to coordinate. Last Friday, I got to go with some teachers and the principal from Liberty High School to the zoo in Fresno. I didn't know that Fresno had a zoo. So we went there, and there was a conference for continuation schools. And so they, as we know, they won the Model Continuation School Award, and we went there, and they had a gorgeous dinner and celebrated those folks. So we were there together. We had lots of recognitions over the last 2 weeks. I've been talking about the middle school and the high school getting the gold ribbon recognition. And so they go through those several phases, which I've been keeping you up to date on. In the final phase, we heard, I think last week, that the California Department of Education gives that final approval. So both of them received that final recognition. So Mr. Scott, congratulations. Well-deserved. And also the high school got an additional recognition, which is an extra honor and award for their exemplary arts program. So our hats go off to both of the schools. A great job. And there'll be a dinner and an award presentation later in the month. You trustees might talk about this who were there. The Solano County School Board Spring Dinner, that was this week. We had our Dr. Patton, our Director of Student Services, who was one of the presenters there, and he talked about suicide and suicide prevention and some of the work that we've been doing here in Benicia to help protect against that. We had an event. When was this one? I'm sorry, this was Tuesday. So every year, the Solano County Office of Education recognizes a classified employee and a certificated employee. So we had 2 individuals that were recognized. The teacher that was recognized is a math teacher at Benicia High School, Leanne Ait. And she's a terrific teacher and very popular and does a terrific, right, getting nods by the students. She's just wonderful.
You want to debate that?
Yeah. And then Angela Porter, who's a campus supervisor at the middle school. She was also recognized. And here's something really cool about Angela. Angela's nomination went all the way to the State Department of Education, and she was recognized as the only one classified employee of the year at the State Department of Education level.
That's correct. She's the first one in Benicia history to go that far and win. And then we found out Tuesday she was the first one in Solano County history to be recognized by the state. So quite a award for Angela and for Benicia.
Yeah, so lots of pride having our folks be recognized. So congratulations to them as well. So my last item is somebody that I want to take just a moment, and the board can join in if they would like, to recognize Dr. Gardner. Dr. Gardner is our deputy superintendent, and he has been with us for 6 years. And Dr. Gardner has decided to retire after a very long and distinguished career as an educator. He's done many things, including superintendent, and principal, and football coach, and teacher, and all kinds of principal, lots of things. And Dr. Gardner, I just want to let you know that the district has very much appreciated your efforts. Personally, I found you to be just trustworthy, knowledgeable, unflappable, under pressure, wise, a good sense of humor. And Dr. Gardner has an expression that he uses, and he actually means it. It sounds very glib. And when I first heard it last year, I thought, what is that? But he really means it. So, Michael, how you doing today? He said, another day in paradise. And he actually means it. He's like, and it really will be for him. So he's always in a terrific mood, and you've done great work for us, Dr. Gardner. So I just want to thank you for your time with us, and wish you well in your retirement.
Well, thank you. And then when our students said class of 2020, it just flashed in my mind. When I first got into education, I heard them shouting the class of 1981. So it's been a few years that I've been around. So 2020 is good. But I've been to several districts, especially as an administrator, and been the longest in Benicia of any place in my career, including teaching. So I really feel fortunate. I really want to put a shout out to former Superintendent Janice Adams for hiring me. I really appreciate her hiring. And I love the town. If you come here, we love the town. My daughter went to high school here.
love the education. I really appreciate all the hardworking people in Benicia Unified. Everybody works hard for students, and so that's what really kind of drives what we do as educators. And so, yeah, moving on to another area. It is another day in paradise, but paradise might get a little bit better in about a month. I'm thinking, but I don't know. My wife might not think that since I'm going to be home a lot more. She might not think the paradise is that good, but I'm looking forward to it. But I've always been proud to say that I work for Benicia Unified, and I'll always be proud to say that I did work for Benicia Unified. Great district, and Charles and I have gotten along really well. You never know when you have a new superintendent come in after you've been with somebody and been real close. But it's been an honor to work with you, Charles. Thank you, Michael.
Well, we've been real careful to make sure that he doesn't stress you out. Right. So, we've been giving him that caution because we didn't want you to leave early knowing you have all that extra sick leave on the books. So. But thank you. I mean, you have been in that position ever since I've been on the board, and I appreciate everything you've done for us and done for our students and our staff, and you've been responsible for reaching out and getting all the good helper and teachers and everybody that we have working for us over the last 6 years. So thank you greatly for that. And then just your friendship and willingness to help out where help is needed. So thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Michael, I'd just like to say that it's been an honor to get to know you and to work with you. I've met you in a few capacities now, and one of the things I really appreciate about you is when we get going, you have a way of bringing us down and keeping us grounded, and for that too, I'm very appreciative. I also asked you when I first came on the board to kind of help me and to get Benicia a little bit more connected and networking through some of the other organizations, and you took that on and you did that, and you brought our team with you. And for that, I really appreciate it too. So thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you personally, because as of coming onto the board last year, I know I've probably asked you 1,000,003 questions, and you've always been extremely patient in helping educate me and get me up to speed on a lot of the things that are unique to our district and to K-12, and I really have found it helpful and appreciate all the work.
My pleasure.
I haven't known you long, but you seem to work a lot, and you seem to know a lot. So yeah, my experience with you has been great, and I can tell that you contributed a lot, and I appreciate all that you've offered in terms of information and support around what you represent and what you do and what you've passed on to us. So thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to say that, the board has changed over the years since I've been here, and I thought about that, and there's not a single board member that was on the board when I started here. Gary came on shortly after I started, but the boards here in Benicia, because you always are concerned about boards, have been fantastic. And even through they always had to focus, even in the tough years where we're having to cut programs, we're having to cut everything else. In the first 3 years I was here, it was very difficult. The boards were very supportive of our staff and our students, and looking out for what's best for kids. So that's what I've always looked forward to. That's probably why I stayed as long till the end of my career.
Well, we have a celebration planned for Dr. Gardner a few weeks from now, but we do have a gift for you. I'd like to give it to you. And if the board wouldn't mind, if we can come up and Dr. Beetson will take our picture with Dr. Gardner.
And while we're doing that, I just want to thank our students and go ahead and let them go. And thank you for coming tonight.
You hear that? You're like 20, 21. Wow.
Okay, board reports. Go ahead.
Far end up.
Sure.
Okay, we'll start this in. Okay. So I got to go see the Putnam County Spelling Bee as well, and the acting was fantastic, and the singing amazing. Our students are so gifted and were so entertaining. It was great. In addition, I wanted to announce the BEF mini grants for the spring semester. We awarded an award to Mr. Guinan at Benicia High School for math supplies, to, I believe, Miss Kleinsmith at Benicia High School for a traveling audio-visual cart so that presentations could be done in other classrooms that aren't already smart technology classrooms. And to Miss Regis at the preschool to bring a traveling reptile show for all our preschoolers. Yeah, Python Ron. Don't want to miss that. I've seen him in action. It's an amazing show. And to Miss Van Amson at the middle school to bring book series, actual book series into her classroom because research shows that getting students hooked on a book series leads them to more reading. And so those were our most recent grants, and we've really enjoyed reading all of the proposals and all of the great work that teachers are doing to bring new things to the classroom for their students.
I don't have much to report, although I did get to go with Mary Farmer's second and first grade classes today to Vacaville to the Center of Performing Arts and see The Princess and the Pea, which was actually quite entertaining. And the kids it was just so cute to look at them. I mean, my son was there too, but like all the kids. It was just so cute to see them looking. They were so excited and engrossed, and I think it's a great opportunity for them to be a part of the arts and be able to be there. And that's my report.
Well, just a couple of quick things, but first of all, I want to thank BEF for the fun run that was had on April 23rd. I was standing at one of the corners and getting to monitor the runners, but we got to ring the cowbell to excite all the runners that were going by. So yeah, we were really good at ringing that bell. So it was fun to see all of our families and our staff participating and moving on through, some a little more quickly, some were walking. It was okay, but it was just fun to see everybody together. It was a really great day. So Stacy and your team, I want to say thank you because I thought it was great, and just great the way you guys support our schools. Thank you. One of the other things, another recognition for Solano that, if you give me a second, I'd like to acknowledge is our superintendent of Solano School, Lizette Esthea Henderson, received the Women Leader of the Year award through AXA. It was we are AXA Region 4 in Solano County, and we partnered with a couple of other regions and put on an event to begin doing this annually. And the work that Lizette has been doing in our county has just stood out phenomenally among other leaders, and so we recognized her as well on the 23rd. Also attended the school board night with Mr. Wing and Dr. Young, and we're able to recognize and acknowledge the work that Carolyn Patton has done as our special ed person. I get a sense from that meeting that she will be supporting some of the other districts as she shares the journey that Benicia has taken in developing our plan. It is an ed code law. It is law now that districts have to have it, and Benicia is the only district that has that done in our area. So I have a feeling that when Carolyn sat up and began talking that she was looking like resource, we're going to contact Carolyn. So she might be a little busy these days, but it was just really nice to have her, those kudos for her as we went through that. And then as your CSBA delegate, I want to drop the gauntlet here. They are getting ready. The applications are out for the Golden Bell Award for any program that comes out through elementary, middle, or high school that we see as outstanding. I think Benicia has a number of programs in our district that are outstanding that would meet the criteria of the Golden Bell Award. It is recognized and awarded in the fall. It's actually part of the CSBA conference that goes on in December that many of us attend as our professional development. So anyways, I would like to see Benicia's name up there this year as a Golden Bell recipient. So And that's my report.
Thank you. Students talked about prom, and I was able to go chaperone prom again this year, and it was students had a lot of fun, and no real incidents happened, and they all made that as a chaperone, and especially the outside guy. Yes, that is real nice to have that, and they all made it home safe. So I was happy with that. I got to participate and help with sound for the BEF run and greet people as they were showing up early that morning, as well as they were finishing up on the runs. And it was always nice to be able to thank them for the support for our schools, and as you know, all the volunteers and Teresa coming back and everything, and you know, just thank you for pass that on to them for all that. So I too went to the play, and you know, I've seen the play before, and Nathan, our performing arts director, added stuff to it, including staff who got easy words like cat and dog, and but he made it fun. He added enough to it where I added enough performers, because the actual real play is only about 8 performers, and I don't know how many was in there, 30, plus the live band on stage, and yeah, the band themselves were great. It was looked like it was all student led on the band, and they were right there on key and on the down note and everything right when they needed to be. So it was fun, and I just wish it would go a couple more weeks and get more people to show up for it. I do know this weekend is the middle school dinner performance, and you have to go to the middle school site to get the information on that. I just know it's this weekend. And I think that is all I have that hasn't, oh, we were talking about, I do have one other thing. We went to the dinner on Monday night, and Carolyn spoke. It was nice hearing the county lady who from mental health talking about suicides, and she was saying how much that Benicia has really jumped all the way forward, and she's known, you know, what has gone on in the community the last few years, and to have us come out with a real nice book. I just want to say that we are going in the right direction to help our students, and we're also going in the right direction to help our staff. And we've, you know, they were talking about that we have a lot of staff that has gone to counseling and safe talk programs, and they were really amazed that we are really jumping forward on this. But it's for our students. It's for helping our students out and being able to identify when there may be issues, and preparing our staff to be able to handle that. But we're also preparing our students on how to prevent this from happening too. So, you know, like I said, it is mandated now, and we are leading the charge on that. But you know, I just wish it wasn't something that we would have to be leading the charge on. But I'm glad that we are. So, and with that, I will close everything on board reports. I didn't print up the new card, so I'm using my old card. We're going to move to comments from members of the public, and members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards which may be completed requesting to address the board are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment, and comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Okay, do we have anybody who would like to make any public statement, public comments? And seeing nobody moving, I will close public comment. And we are going to jump to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And we have no gifts. Okay. No gifts. Actually, we do. BF did a big gift for us. Thank you. Yes, it was. Discussion items, 12.1. Budget strategic plan, local controlled accountability plan update. Mr. Rayhill.
I'll tee it up real quick.
Sure.
So, yes, Mr. Rayhill will be part of the presentation. So this item does a number of things for us. So this is the time of the year where we talk about the LCAP, and Dr. Beatson and her team has been working on that. And again, the LCAP also functions as our strategic plan. And so this was the night where she wanted to, give us a look into it and see what's in there and do a nice overview. But we've had some very thoughtful conversations as a board about the nexus between total budget planning as a district and in relation to the development of the strategic plan. So we thought it would be a good idea to do those together tonight. So Mr. Rayhill will give us a view of the budget landscape as we move forward. And as we know, there's some challenges there for us in many districts, if not all, throughout California regarding the budget situation. So he'll talk about that and some of the challenges that are in front of us, including, every year we start off with a $900,000 expenditure, which is the cost of STIRS and PERS, which are increasing dramatically, and also the cost of step and column, which is built in because we want to compensate our employees appropriately, but that's that cost every year. So he'll talk about that. He'll go over some possible some reductions that we would like you to consider tonight in order to address our budget situation. And another conversation that we might have to have in greater length at some point, that if, as we go forward, that we need to make further reductions to our budget, different ways of looking at that. One of them might include our conversation around to what degree, if at all, we would want to consider spending, it would be some degree of deficit spending into our board policy reserve. So that isn't something that we'll figure out or solve tonight, but I just wanted to say that Tim will Mr. Ray will talk about that a little bit more. So he'll give that landscape to us, and we go to the May revise in Sacramento on May 17th to get the full picture to see where we really are. But we're in good shape as a district, but there are definitely some real challenges financially that we need to be realistic about and take a look at them. And then Dr. Beatson will go over the LCAP with you. So with that, here we go. I think you're starting.
Okay. Thank you for having us. So tonight is, as Dr. Young said, really a conversation about the intersection between budgeting and LCAP. As you know, LCAP's our strategic plan. It's pretty comprehensive. It's been a great process to do. So tonight, we're hoping we get three things out of this discussion. One is just kind of reviewing and understanding the timelines and processes for the budget and the strategic plan and how those intersect. Understanding the new highlights in the new strategic plan. So we wanted to give you some time to go through this lengthy document. We won't go through it all tonight, but we wanted to give you enough time to review that. And then again, understanding the linkage between these two very important parts of our development. Well, Okay, great. So just timelines, sort of where we are. On April 21st, we had to turn in our draft in its entirety to the Solano County Office of Education. And it is still a working draft, so we've already gotten some feedback on that, and we'll be making continuous revisions. May 4th, we have, is this evening, we'll have our initial budget and strategic plan board information discussion. May 17th, as Dr. Young told us, the governor's May budget revise happens. On June 1st, I will be bringing back the strategic plan to you for a presentation and public hearing. And then on June 15th, we will recommend that you adopt the strategic plan LCAP, and then it needs to go from there to the county, to the state. So that's just where we are in our process.
This slide attempts to kind of set the landscape for our budget. There are some big factors that affect our budget, some main ones that financially hit our budget pretty big, and they're listed there. The first one called STRS and PERS, those are the retirement systems for our employees, and they are struggling a little bit at the state level right now to make their investment returns to cover all the pension costs. So they've been asking schools and other public agencies to contribute more each year, as well as the individual member would also contribute more out of his or her paycheck. So that's a big factor, increasing by a percentage or two each year for the next several years. So we'll show you those numbers in detail at the June 1st budget information meeting. So tonight, again, we're just kind of trying to paint the picture of what those big items are as we prepare our budget. Benicia has declined in enrollment a little bit. Our biggest source of fund from the state comes from our students enrolled, our students attending class. And so we've been very stable over the last 6 years, except for the last 2 years. That has shown a slight decline. A couple items later on the agenda, we're going to hear from SCI, who did a demographic study for us, and we'll show what to expect in the future. Special education costs are on the rise, as our special education revenues are on the fall. So it's kind of a double whammy. Right now, it may be about $200,000 for a hit for next year. And so we're continuing to monitor that really closely. One of the last big factors affecting our budget is what we call step and column, and that has to do with the salary schedules that we have for our employees. And each year, if they meet a longevity threshold, most of the time it's a step up each year. Sometimes they have to wait a couple years. It depends on the salary schedule. So that is at least $350,000 a year. It is growing. Once we kind of close the books this year, we always kind of sit back and recalculate it. And I anticipate that our step and column costs will now be closer to about $400,000. But we won't know that till we really close the books. So as I'm kind of talking about the budget, Leslie's talking about the LCAP, and the two documents really are developed together. I join Leslie and others in the development of the LCAP, make sure that the budget incorporates what is in that plan. It tells our story, talks about the people that we hire and work with to provide those services, looking at the student performance data and the needs associated with helping all of our students improve. And we detail out our LCAP with specific action items and budget codes that you can trace back to the budget. So we are looking at currently what our budget is and in the outer years, and currently our revenue inflows are not matching our expenditures. And so we have budget adjustments for consideration. As we also note, there is a local board policy reserve that the board set up several years ago to put aside at least 1 month's payroll for the district. And we use the state's required reserve, and we augment that up by another 4%. And so that board policy is attached in the packet tonight, and basically says that the board, it intends to set aside the board policy reserve for the equivalent of 1 month of payroll. So that's kind of the key word there. We can talk more about this at the end or maybe at another time, and whether or not we would want to consider board action or just board direction in regards to when we present our budget on June 1st as information, and then for action on June 15th, whether we feel that the board policy needs to be changed if the board so chooses to dip into that reserve for the 17-18 year. So again, the language says the board intends to maintain that reserve. It doesn't say shall maintain that reserve. So there is a little bit of flexibility there, but it's like any other board policy that can be reviewed and modified as the board desires. The next page shows our possible budget adjustments for 2017-18. So as we're crunching the numbers and putting our budget together for next year, our cabinet group, which is made up of the executive administrators here at the district office, we've done some outreach to the principal, and so we've come up with this list that is basically what you could refer to as kind of the low-hanging fruit. These were the things that we felt that we could easily accomplish for the budget year, reducing our discretionary supplies and services by $200,000. We will apply 50% of the music prep over to our supplemental grant, as well as the psych intern. There was some program change that did have some savings in our special education program as students age out of that. Savings for a band assistant. The exploratory will, graciously funded by our Education Foundation, a reading program that we're going to do something different with our elementary students, and reorganize the technology department a little bit, saving half of the position. So basically, we're here in early May. The next big trigger is the governor's May revised budget on May 17th. So we're not expecting a big change on that May revise. You never know if the state has another good month. There's been some good months. There's been some bad months in regards to meeting its revenue quotas. It could possibly provide more funding to schools like Benicia, but we're not hearing that to expect a big change, either up or down. So the last time we did our target, in order for us to break even next year, we would have to adjust our budget or cut by about $800,000. So this list gets us a little bit more than halfway there. But if we were to stop at this point, then the budget would presented tapping into the board policy reserve by about $400,000. So it wouldn't be a full month's payroll. Right now, that reserve is about $2 million. It would be $400,000 less, or $1.6 million, which would be the equivalent of some fraction of 1 month, maybe 80 or 70% of 1 month of payroll, and we can come back with the exact number. So with that, we can come back at the end, but we have a few more slides that goes back into the LCAP now.
So we wanted to do these together because you will see some new items in the LCAP, and so we wanted to sort of paint the picture. We've taken some things out, how the LCAP really intersects with the budget, and really thinking about how the items, actions and services in the LCAP are really responsive to community input, staff input, and what our data shows. And that's a requirement as we go through the processes to select a lot of stakeholder engagement and to make decisions based on data and things that we need to increase to help our student performance increase as well. So just reminding you, there are 3 goals in our LCAP. They have stayed the same. They're around college and career readiness, academics, social emotional wellness, and professional development. That's goal 1. Goal 2 really has to do with technology in 21st century classrooms, and the third goal really has to do with parent and community partnerships. I'm going to pass these out. So last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, I gave you just the annual update part. So this one has all the new sections included. And reminding you that the LCAP is written, if you think about it, in chapters. So chapter 1 that's tabbed for you is the annual update. Oh, actually, and I should have put this on here, before the annual update is a summary. And that's a new section in our LCAP. It's required in our template, and it's sort of like the Cliff Notes. So if you didn't want to read that whole document, you could read the front part and get a sense of what our LCAP is about, what's the story. Then there's the annual update. That is the part that I had handed you last time, which is our current year and update. So we said we were going to do X. What did we actually do? We said we were going to spend X. What did we actually spend? And then the update in our data as well. So it's the then the third section is our stakeholder engagement section, and that describes the process and then lists all of the opportunities that staff and public had to give input into our current LCAP, and then ideas after looking at data, ideas for what they would like to have seen. One big thing that we did this year that was different was we added the gallery walk. And that was housed in here. We had taken all of the input that we had gathered through all of the other sessions, put them up on big posters around the room, and all of the participants listened to a data story at each goal station to really try to understand. There was lots of great things that were listed, knowing that we couldn't do all of them, and how do you start to choose? And so really understanding what that data said to help them make informed decisions. The fourth section is the new goals, action, services, and expenditure. So you have not seen that yet, but this is after we did all of that. We met with Cabinet and we talked about, well, out of these things, what do we think we can do? Are there things that are important but they don't necessarily go in the LCAP because they're negotiated items? Are there other ways to fund certain things? Are there things we need to take out? So that section is in there. And then the last section before the addendum, which I attached, you don't need to read, it's really the directions, but they are required as it goes to the county. So it's tabbed called Unduplicated, and that is a narrative that describes the services and actions that are in the LCAP specifically intended for those three groups of students, our foster youth, homeless, EL, and low socioeconomic. So that's more of a description, and it has to have some research behind why we're doing what we're doing. So that's how to read this document. And so, oops, I guess I did 2 slides in one here.
Could we get this in a PDF form
Absolutely.
when you're all done?
Absolutely.
Because I don't like having all these papers.
Absolutely. I didn't know if you'd prefer to read it in paper form or in PDF. Right now it's still a draft and it will still take some iterations.
Understand.
Yeah, but I will send it out to you as a PDF as well. Just one other reminder is that our actions, as I said, there are 8 state priorities that we have to address as we go through the LCAP, and they're everything from do our Williams reports, do our students have the textbooks they need, are our teachers credentialed to teach the courses that they need to teach, how does our academic indicators, so our SBAC scores, that's the state test, the graduation rate, suspension rate, English learner data, all of those things. So we have to report on all of that. And we also have to report on our local data. And that is we use benchmarks and surveys to gather lots of local data. So that was the foundation of making the decisions that we did. So I'm not going to take you through all of it. So much of what was in the LCAP, we kept in because change takes time, and so we needed to keep some of those same actions in to show growth over time. But in response to data, and if you remember when we reported last time, an area of focus is really math and some particular schools and with some particular student groups. And so there's a few pages in your PowerPoint that really talk about what are some very targeted things that we're going to implement, or that we're hoping once this gets approved to implement to support students in mathematics. And so, for instance, we would like to do an after-school math support next year at Robert Semple, Mary Farmer, and BMS for students who meet determined criteria, so we'll create that criteria, and those are our Title I schools, so the unduplicated student count, we're really focusing on them. We want to offer this summer a summer bridge program at those same 3 schools for students moving from 5th to 6th grade and 8th to 9th, particularly focusing on math, again, because that's an area that we're finding we're struggling in. And that would be, the intention of that would be to take students who are not quite ready for that next step and kind of give them that preview and give them that boost, so when they hit the ground running in August, they have that step up. And so we were thinking about doing this right before school started. Also, a summer bridge literacy program at Robert Semple and Mary Farmer for students moving from grades 1 to 2. And again, there would be certain criteria, and it would be students that didn't quite get where we hoped they would get by the end of the year, and to prevent that summer loss. Another exciting thing that we've included in this LCAP is we've really studied hard our math data at the middle school, and would love to hire a math middle school instructional coach that would work alongside the teachers in their classrooms doing lesson planning, modeling, looking at student work together, co-teaching, and really putting that emphasis on instructional practices and student performance at the middle school in the math department. Again, focusing on our Title I schools and increasing VAPA, so the visual and performing arts, for students at Semple and Farmer and Liberty High School. And so that could be, it's just a small amount of money, but in helping with some supplies, bringing in some artists. We partner really well with Arts Benicia, so how can we do some artist in residency that might be partnering with and working with the curriculum. Another area, and this is a switch, is a music teacher. We heard loud and clear from our community that we would like more music in our schools, and so we had our keyboarding teacher, that was our 4th and 5th grade teacher, has retired, and so instead of doing keyboarding as a pull-out elective, the teachers will still have access to the keyboarding program, but we would replace it with a music prep for 4th and 5th graders. We're going to add AVID as a section in 7th grade, so we're continuing to expand that program. We have we're going to continue the iQuest section. Next year, Next Generation Science Standards will be rolling in, finishing up at the middle school and starting to roll into the high school, and they've restructured their courses for science, and so we would like to give a 20% release period to one teacher at the high school to help the 9th grade teachers, because the 9th grade course is now going to be physics in the universe. And so they would like some professional development and support from their colleague who has a lot of physics background to really work that curriculum, to help do lesson planning, to help them really get that course solid. We've been able to increase the pathways to include medical and construction trades, and there have been lots of signups and great response to that. So some of these things that I'm going through, these are the new things in the LCAP this year. Some are from our LCFF funding, and some are from grants. So this CTE, there are grants that support that. So it's not all coming from there, but I wanted to just kind of pull out what would you read in here that's new and different. And then the last page is we are looking to provide Lexia, which is a primary reading program to help kids with phonics at the all elementary sites. Currently 2 sites have it, and we want to expand that to help students at all sites. We've got a chunk of money in there for continuing professional development, because we really believe that supporting our teachers and investing in their continued growth is the best thing that we can do to support academic and social and emotional wellness for our students. So things that we're looking at are culturally responsive teaching. At the middle school, we're really looking at how do we design our middle school program so that it meets the nature and needs of adolescents. Literacy in math and science, of course. Continuing with PBIS and building in a restorative justice piece for the schools that are ready with that. And then doing a focus on differentiated instruction and universal design for learning. And so that means creating tasks and lessons for kids that everyone can access. And that helps with challenging students as well. Challenging students, I mean helping to challenge students, not challenging students. A couple other things that we built in, and then I'm almost done, I promise, are some release days for departments or teams to work on curriculum work and content work, and that would be facilitated. But finding time, we find there's never enough time for them to get together and to really plan together, look at student work together, study data together. So building in some time for that, increasing some mobile devices. At Farmer and Semple, doing some family outreach this summer to really welcome new families. We find that sometimes families don't enroll right away, and so really doing some extra outreach. So having some teachers paid over the summer to make some phone calls, maybe some home visits to really get people ready for school and get them excited to come. And then helping at Farmer and Semple with some library book support for their libraries. So those are the new highlights in our LCAP. Question?
Now, right away is you're expanding Lexia, and Tim, my own reading was, which is fairly new, if I recall, is it's one of the items that you're suggesting we cut, correct?
Yeah.
So
why? So Mayan was intended to give kids more access to text, and we did a study of this because we wanted to make sure. We pulled the data on Mayan reading, and only a handful of kids were using it at home, and only for about an hour and a half average over the course of the whole year. And it was a pretty expensive program, and so Lexia is something that the teachers will use as an instructional tool in classes. And some of the other feedback we got from parents was that they didn't want their kids reading as much online. They're still using the books. And so we didn't feel like the Mayan program, which was a way to just give kids additional access to text, but it wasn't necessarily used as a major instructional tool, was going to get us the bang for the buck, where Lexia will.
I just know I've heard a lot about the Mayan.
I know there's mixed.
There's mixed, yeah.
There is mixed, but when we pulled the data, it was shocking at how few kids actually log in at home.
Well, I know I've heard that several parents aren't really fond of it.
Right.
You know, they didn't give real specific reasons, but whatever we used to use before, they liked better than Mayan. Yes. What was it? Accelerated. The accelerated reader.
And accelerated reader was you read a traditional book, but you took a quiz on it, which was going a little bit in opposition to what we're trying to do with kids, was to get them to talk about text and really.
Okay. So, but I saw that and I
Yes.
was like, okay,
So,
talk to me about that.
Yep. Any other questions?
More of a comment. So the elementary exploratory wheel, BEF did vote to fund the one semester of the wheel going into next year, where we had hoped it would be an expansion of the wheel project for the whole year. But what my team asked that I bring back to you is the wish that we still try and figure out a way to do that, to make the exploratory wheel a year-round project. That, you know, needing to fund it out of I was going to say supplemental funds, but that's the wrong category. External funding, I understand the reasons why, and you know, we've discussed that with the foundation. But a lot of the feedback we got when we were looking to extend it was that the families and the teachers and the elementary principals really wanted that program to be a year-round program. So we just want to be on the record to say, yes, we will fund it from external funding, and we want to keep working on having it be a year-round program.
And thank you for doing that, and we can continue to explore that.
I have one more question. So also on the budget landscape, you are on Tim's first slide. We have the music prep teacher, the $35,000 as something to consider as a cut, right?
It's not, basically what we are doing is with the 4-5 music prep teacher. That's replacing the keyboard and technology feature.
So it's gonna, okay, so we're exchanging one position
One
for
for
another,
one,
so,
yeah.
okay, so
Half
there
will-
will be a half person less.
No.
No,
Yeah, right now.
what's that?
Yeah, right now we have PE,
Uh-huh.
keyboarding, and what's the third one?
Music.
Music.
No.
No.
Right now, we have keyboarding, and we only have 2 for 4th and 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
So music is 1st through 3rd, and keyboarding and
That's
PE
right.
is for 4th and 5th. But what this is saying,
Getting confused,
right.
it's like we're not.
but this is saying that half of the funding for that position will get funded somewhere else with supplemental funds.
Okay, but there'll
There'll be
only be two.
There will still only be 2 for the 4th and 5th
So
grade.
now it'll be PE
And music,
not
correct.
Okay.
So then keyboarding is no longer a separate curricular piece, but the program is still accessible?
Yes, the program has always been accessible for students at home. It tracks student progress, it has lessons built in, and so we're still purchasing that, and the kids can use it both at home and in their classrooms.
So it can be a tool for teachers. to use
Exactly.
in other ways.
So as someone with a non-education background, I'm hoping, can you just clarify a couple of the acronyms?
Sure.
So AVID.
Advancement via individual determination.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
It's a program that you can start offering in middle school and definitely into the high school, and it's for a group of students who come from families that may not have gone to college before, and it kind of exposes them to college readiness at a different, more advanced level.
What kids would be appropriate for that or kind of qualify for that program?
Typically, it's they work with their counselors, and it's students that don't have families that have, they might be the first generation to go to college. I don't know that it's exclusive to them, but that's the group that we try to encourage. And we've had our first group will be graduating this year, so they start in 9th grade and they stay. The hope is that they stay actually they started in 8th grade, and next year they'll get to start in 7th grade, and that they stay in, it's one period that they stay in and learn a lot of those readiness skills, and they love it.
Okay, that sounds great. And the iQuest?
iQuest, we heard, maybe you weren't on the board when they came. It's a internship program that Annette Fewens runs, and so the kids love it, and they get to find an internship and work out in the community as part of their coursework.
I do remember.
That's in its first year, and I think we can offer.
No, just one.
And NGSS is a science
Yep, national,
standards, right?
next generation science standards.
Great, thank you.
You're so
Appreciate it.
welcome.
One quick point on the standards piece, when we put the item in there about the 20% coach, when you adopted the new graduation requirements at the high school, and we were trying to make them look as close to A through G as possible with just a few adjustments. One of the ones that we did under science, the required from the A through G is 2 years, recommended 3. That was the area that we upped to 3, requiring 3 for our graduation requirements. And the reason we did that is those next generation science standards are quite different than the way that we do things now. They're very involved and deep. And we thought the only way we could really get through those with integrity is to have that 3-year requirement. So that'll be a good thing for our students, but hence the coach to help teachers, make their way with those new standards.
One more. Sorry, I didn't notify you of these ahead of time. All right. The CTE pathway, which I'm very excited about. And I know the kids are excited, and it's like, hooray, we have the opportunity to offer them. My concern is once the grant. What are we thinking about for that, so that we don't have to shut these down? We can maintain them and continue to grow them.
Leslie and I have been working with Brianna pretty closely, and a lot of other people as well. And really, when the CTE grant, the Career Tech Ed grants for this medical fields program and the construction trades programs, really those are kind of jumpstart funds to get the program going, to find the right teachers that have the right credential, and to buy equipment and develop the program. And so really those kids, those 30 kids in each section are now going to be in a medical section instead of another type of elective. And so really it becomes sustainable because, you know, you don't need that other class because now they're in that medical class or they're in that construction. But it takes
So
time.
you're saying
and
we're just really
interest.
changing enrollment patterns?
Yes.
Is the goal?
Not exactly one for one. They'll still be, you know, it's not a total swap, but I think this is really the first year that will have enrollment in both construction trades and the medical fields. Construction, we hired the teacher in construction trades partway this year to help develop the program. We have hired a teacher for the medical fields. I don't think she started yet, but so she'll come on board, and they already have kids enrolled in those classes.
I had one more comment / question. I was talking to some math teachers, upper grade math teachers, and talking about that, you know, we're doing this work to sort of remediate at the middle school and build up the math programs at the lower levels. And the question came up about what are we doing in the elementary levels to help build up the math programs so that the pipeline, we don't have to do as much remediation later on.
So we last year adopted our new math program, Everyday Math, and when our scores came out, so the kids are doing, so we're in our second year of implementation, and when our SBAC scores came out at the elementary level this year, they had done really, really well. And so it will take some time to roll up, but it really helps kids think differently about math, and they learn lots of great strategies. It's not about, they still want memorization, but that fast skill and drill timed test is gone. So that whole practice doesn't happen anymore because what they've learned is kids just freeze, and so they know much more than they can actually produce because of those other pressures. So I think the elementary math program is on its way to be really, really strong, and that showed not only through our local benchmarks, but through our state testing as well. And so I think we'll continue to see that. So we're focusing on middle school, and we're actually having some meetings with the high school too to say, okay, what does this look like at the high school? How do we support students? What's the best practice? We're consulting with Pam Hutchinson, who is at UC Davis through the math project, and so she does a lot of consultation with us about here's the way you do a support class, here's how we support students, here's how things align, and with our CPM educational rep, and she'll come in and talk with us quite a bit about, you know, use this data and so forth to help kids get into the right classes. So we're doing a lot of work around math, both at the middle and the high school.
Okay, Tim? Enrollment projections? Oh, okay. I just was looking at the PowerPoint up there and thought it was all parts of all one. Okay. 12.2, first reading of the following board policies. Dr. Young.
Thank you very much. Before I comment on that, Dr. Beetson reminded me that at the next board meeting, June 1st, we'll have a public comment, which is a requirement for public hearing, rather, for the LCAP. All right. So you have in your packet tonight a number of board policies, and we have our process that we use. We have the Board Policy Review Committee. We meet once a month, and we analyze the policies. We have a list of ones that we're want to make sure that we're adjusting and being timely about it, and we respond to updates from the California School Boards Association, and have those in front of you tonight. These are policies that don't, as I recall, have substantive changes in them, but we bring them for first view this evening if you have any questions.
Any questions? Thank you for that. Okay, 12.3, report and discussion on student enrollment and demographic study.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. This is for your information tonight. We have Blair from SCI, who did a demographic study for our school district, looking at historical enrollment and also projecting our student enrollment into the future. Basically, I'm not going to steal his thunder, but it's still pretty flat with a little bit of ups and downs each year. And Blair can go into a little bit more detail. We hired SEI, because we had experienced 2 years of declining enrollment. And so we just wanted to make sure there wasn't something happening out there that would continue into the future and make a bigger impact on our school district.
Thank you, Tim, and good evening, President Wing and members of the board and Dr. Young. Again, my name is Blair Oz. I'm with SCI Consulting Group. I'm the Director of Planning Services and very pleased to be here this evening to present the 5-year enrollment projections for the district and have a little conversation just about some of the demographic trends that we have discovered. But before I begin, if you'd just indulge me for a minute, I just feel compelled to really give the district just a really big high five for encouraging and supporting debate for your students. I was blessed with being a member of my high school debate team and just have some really, really fond memories of that experience. I won my first debate tournament that I participated in Lincoln Douglas debate, and had long nights and a lot of successes, a lot of failures, but I just look back to those days with a lot of fond memories. I just can testify to how much that can enhance a child's education. So a big high five, and I also recognize as a public finance consultant that school districts struggle to support these type of activities. So Tim, if I can coordinate with you, if I can get a donation to Ms. Gaines and the team, I'd like to do that.
Oh, thank you.
You bet. You bet.
Thank you very much.
So before we jump into a lot of the numbers, I usually find these type of presentations just to take a minute to talk about the factors that influence enrollment in the district before we get into it, and you'll sort of see how these play out. But first and foremost, the timing, the level, the type, and location of new residential development is always one of the biggest factors. In your district, that's not necessarily the case, but if you did have new development that would service that certainly has can really influence the enrollments in the district. The birth rates in the district, historical birth rates, can really have a big impact in the district, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But then there are just a number of different types of factors that influence enrollment in the districts that aren't really quantifiable, but we capture those aggregately in our projections. But I mean, if you think about it, just dramatic changes in the district's API scores, one way or the other. We find modernization of modernization of facilities or new school facilities, or really cutting edge programs can enhance enrollment. Changes in the local economy, which affected the birth rates that we'll see here from a few years ago. Private school enrollment, inter-district transfers is a big one. So there's quite a few of those. Our work, so a lot of those factors are not quantifiable, either difficult to do or just impossible to do, but they're really baked into our work. Let's see. So just a little bit of an overview. So we used a modified weighted cohort survival methodology for the projections, which is really considered the most reliable and common method for such type of enrollment projections. The cohort survival method uses an aging approach where you move one group of students or a cohort from one school year to the next, and they either increase or decrease in numbers based upon historical trends. So for this current year, as you're probably aware, there was a significant decline in enrollment and a little bit the year before. This year declined by over 90 students, and it was significant, about 1.9%. And so we'll look at what really caused that. So for the 5-year period, we are seeing just a very slight decline overall in the district-wide enrollments. We notably, we're seeing that there will be elementary school growth, but a pretty rather significant decline at the high school. And then when we get to it, I'll also share with you when we talked about these cohort survival rates. So there was a little bit of a concern for this particular year that is something that the district probably should monitor. We haven't seen any building activity has been very, very modest, about 3 to 4 units per year. And we've seen a slight increase in birth rates that is going to be a big factor. And then we also analyzed the St. Dominic's school, which is the private school that competes with the district, and actually found that although you experienced a 3.5% decline over 10 years, they experienced a 13% decline. So you're arguably particularly taking students from them over the years. So the next slide, not much to share there, but very limited building activity. As you can see, with the height of the housing market, still we're only generating 31, 16, 10, 19 students, which really when you're getting about 0.7 students per home, that's not really going to do much to your enrollments, and it's declined and is quite steady for the last few years. As I mentioned, one significant factor is that can influence enrollment in the district is the birth rates. The number of births in 2012 affected the kindergarten enrollment for this year, and so that's what this chart shows. So the top line is historical kindergarten enrollment. The green is then the projected, and then the blue represents the births 5 years prior. And so you can see that there's a pretty solid correlation. It starts to spread a little bit in these recent years, and that's likely due to just more interdistrict transfers. But if I can highlight, oh shoot. There we go. So right here was the height of the economy and the housing market, and then a pretty universal trend for all school districts was the decline in the birth rates, and you can see that was similar here. You can see this decline for about 4 years. It's declined quite significantly, and that was a common trend, but it has started to return. And so you can, as a cohort, you can sort of think about that as a little bit of a negative bubble, and so that's what's starting to affect some of your enrollments in these later years. So the green represents, so just based upon this historical trend, the green represents our projection for kindergarten enrollment for these next 5 years. I know that, so these are the historical cohort survival rates. There's a lot of numbers there, but the one thing I just wanted to highlight, it's just something to maybe keep to monitor. It's not overly concerning, but and again, just like to explain this chart, if you look at the line where it says K to 1, that means that kindergartners from 1 year, and then how many kindergartners stayed with the district and transferred net to become a first grader. And you can see that first grade, second grade, fourth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade actually had 10-year historical lows for those grade levels. So I can't really quite say whether that's just an anomaly or whether that's the beginning of some type of a trend. More likely the latter, but it's just something to monitor. So here are the 5-year enrollment projections by school. We're showing that 3 of the 4 elementary schools will increase in enrollment, with one staying relatively flat, which I think is Joe Henderson. Benicia Middle School will just slightly decline over the few years, nothing to be concerned about. But Benicia High School is projected to significantly decline in enrollment by about 158 students. And that decline is due to the matriculation of those students from the elementary school and middle school, and that negative bubble that we talked about back because of those lower birth rates. And then also these cohorts are a little bit lower than they have been historically, and so that was a little bit concerning. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Again, keep in mind that these enrollment projections, because there's so many factors at play, they're intended to be just guidelines and not absolutes, and you do want to continue to update them and monitor these trends because these factors do change over time. Great. With that, can I answer any questions of the district?
So if we're thinking that bubble from 2012, brings our numbers down at the high school level, would we also then be thinking the 5 years after that we should be seeing these increases?
Yes. So I think it's fair to say if you went beyond that 5 to 10 year window for the high school, you'll start to see those enrollments start to return.
Okay. Thank you. And I did have one other question. So on our chart where we're talking about the historic lows for these grades, so if I'm reading this correctly, it says that when your class goes from 3rd grade to 4th grade, you're actually getting an increase of like half a student if you have 1.05. So we're losing students in these grades at probably what rate? Like, does this represent we've lost 1 or 2 students, or we've lost 10 students?
Yeah, I could probably present it that as well. I don't know. I don't know specifically. But that just, I hear you. Yeah. It would probably be better to reflect that showing net students, but.
We have, real general, we have about 300 students at each elementary grade level. So the 2-3 line, or the 1 to 2 line in 1670 says 0.99. So 99% of those first graders ended up in 2nd grade this year. So that'd be 297 out of 300.
So are we kind of looking at the fact that students are not coming in? Because if we're increasing from year to year, a 0.05, 0.03, so on and so forth, those have to be students coming in from an external source, right?
Yes, I would assume so. So some, families move.
Right, and the family that moves in maybe has fewer children or something like in a different grade level or something. Okay.
We call it the existing housing stock continues to homes sell, and so what's the profile of that home buyer, and some of those factors that I discussed earlier can start to change that. So I've seen school districts where their API scores go like this, and I've seen them where they tank over a 10-year period, and that just that can have a dramatic effect on enrollments, and it's very subtle. It's in the change of that as existing homes are changing, the profile starts to change a little bit, and you start to see that that's all baked in to these numbers here.
So like as the cost of housing goes up, it takes a more mature family to buy that house, and you may not get as many younger children.
Right. Some school districts have had an aging population, so empty nester households, and then all of a sudden that plus some other local economy factors are at play. Those homes start turning over and with new families, and so you start to be, school districts that have no residential development, all of a sudden their enrollment growth starts to spike because that's a big factor. It's very minor here, but there's a little this particular year, and that really is one of the causes of the 90 student decline this year, was just that drop. Getting your handle on exactly why that is a little bit challenging. So.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
So I have a question that maybe also for you. Thank you very much for presenting. So I turned it on. Maybe I'm not sitting far enough. So I guess my question is sort of how this translates into the actual monies for us. I mean, and I know this isn't a sure thing. Obviously, it's a projection, so it will be a. But I'm just wondering too, in terms of this presentation, and just for the public understanding of what this means for us. And I know, so if I look at like, let's say 21, 22, it's like about a 30 student change, right, overall, which I just did it on my little, I haven't done everyday math, so my arithmetic is very, very dusty. It's about, right, $240,000. I mean, do you see this as, because I know that, declining enrollment is a significant thing for a lot of districts, and it's something we're concerned about for monies that we're getting in, but is this something that, like after getting this information, is this more encouraging than we thought it was in terms of our sense, or do you, just my question.
The report confirmed what we were hoping is that that will continue to go up and down a little bit, but that these bigger declines, we don't see any trends that would, besides at the high school, that would continue to take our enrollment down consecutively year after year. And so we use this, we still track our enrollment monthly at every school, at every grade. And so, now we have a base report, and we just kind of update it each month with the students enrolled in each one of our schools. So even, this is kind of a living, breathing document too. We'll take the chart and add to it, but we use that when we sit down with the principals and set staffing levels at their school site. So, the middle school and the high school secondary in our budget, and also alternative education. So because of the recent declines, we're adjusting down by 5. Or elementary school, we have not adjusted down. So we're keeping the same level of staffing at this point in time, but we're going to monitor kindergarten very closely now until July, when families continue to enroll, to see if we need to make any adjustments there for kindergarten or TK.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to minimize at all the concern around the financial piece, but I guess it's not as many as I thought it would be. I guess I don't know if that makes sense. So, I mean, clearly $240,000 is a lot of money, and we're not sure about our economic future, obviously, in terms of funding, but.
And I'm glad you brought up the financial side of the picture. So we have enrollment projections tonight that we're talking about. So, our students are enrolled right now, and about 96% of our students attend school every day. So there's always like a 4% absent rate for whatever reason. And the state funds us on attendance, not on enrollment. So they also, the good and bad is that the good news is they give us a hold harmless, so that if you are declining enrollment, they will hold your funding harmless to last year. So that's the good news. The bad news is if you have it 2 years in a row, it will catch up to you, which it will in 17, 18. So we're actually, we're expecting about an 85 student reduction in the funding side of it. So it's significantly more than that.
Okay.
You know, at over $8,000 a kid now, it's pretty significant dollars. So that's what drove us to, you know, work with Blair to make sure that we don't see a major declining enrollment trend continuing. And so now we've kind of not singled out, but identified the high school as an area to watch a little bit closer, because that does show the continued decline there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So following up on that. So that explanation, though, carries out if you look forward to, it looks to me like we have declining enrollment probably with our worst year showing in 1920. So,
It's 2019 to 2020.
Oh, 19.
yeah, from 19, from, yeah.
1920s.
Yeah.
From 1920.
Yes. So we then would take these budget cuts through the year 2021. Am I hearing you correctly? So if our enrollments are going down every year for the next, this current year, last year, and the next 3 years, then we need to be accounting for, by 1920, $400 and something thousand cut.
Are you looking on page 7?
I'm looking at the 5-year enrollment projections, page 7.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say, you know, as you look at that bottom line, the total enrollment there, you know, this year at 4,767. And so, you know, we're going to monitor that very closely between now and then. So it will be, you know, different. Our actual enrollment will be different than that. And so but we had to lock that in and project, you know, a reduction of, you know, about 30 kids or so into 18, 19. But after we update 17, 18, we'll update all the outer years and see where we're at. You know, honestly, a reduction of 10 students from one year to the next, that's very minimal when you have over almost 5,000 kids. So I'd say we'd watch that closer and make adjustments as necessary. And if, you know, if we are able to adjust staffing, because we have less kids, we would need less staff for the programs, then we would do so. 10 students, that's not a lot, but you know, we'd have to keep the conversation going and identify that in our budget story that, you know, we're down 10 kids, that's about $80,000 this year. So recognize it. But maybe at that point in time, the state has rebounded and maybe they're providing more funding per student that will cover our costs. Yes.
Aren't we at the point with our LCAP funding that we're just about we're close to 100% now, right? Aren't we at 80-something percent? So, I mean, we're not going to, we're in the, okay, so we're not going to take any more big jumps with
Not
regard
like we
to
have.
per
Not,
student.
And then, so, and remember, under the current state funding with the local control funding formula, LCFF, we have a target.
Right.
It's out there in 2020. We're about 90%, 90 to 95% there, like almost all other districts in California are. Once we reach our target, the state goes back to the cost of living allowance adjustment. That could change in 2020, we don't know. But those recent cost of living adjustments have been less than what we've gotten through the LCFF formula.
Right. But over these next years where we're going to be continuing to experience decline in enrollment, we're also just about at capacity for full funding of students.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So is this decline already accounted for in the discussion about cutting the budget?
Yes, we've accounted for the decline in enrollment with the budget presentation earlier.
Okay. Make sure that we're covering both sets of numbers. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Greatly appreciate that. Okay, 12.4, discussion and review of solar proposals received for installation of solar panels at 4 BUSD sites. Let's see.
Hi, good evening. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of history and bring you up to date to where we are. So solar proposals were acquired from 3 vendors. 2 vendors were shortlisted and interviewed. Tonight we're here to present the findings and review recommendations, and we'll be returning on May 10th, where we'll be requesting the board to take action on this item. In wanting to save annual energy expenses, the district explored solar energy savings options. The design consists of solar panels mounted on top of new carport-like structures. At the high school, the structures are proposed to be located in the upper parking lot. At Robert Semple and Joe Henderson, the structures would be placed adjacent to the playgrounds. And at Matthew Turner, the structures would be placed in the staff parking lot. The proposed locations have been reviewed with the site principals, and there weren't any concerns expressed. The data presented in your packets has been updated from prior meetings to reflect the actual contractor's quotes in lieu of engineers' cost estimates presented at prior meetings. We're pleased that the vendor quotes came in lower than the engineers estimated that were given prior. So it appears the district will be well served to proceed with solar panel installation across all the district sites, with the exception of the middle school and the district office, which were eliminated due to site constraints. So we did this quick summary, and it just shows, so the total cost for the construction, and then the funding sources. So the cost for the construction across all the schools is roughly $5.3 million. We're looking at utilizing $3 million of the CEC 0% energy loan, $2.3 million from Krebs loans from the state of California, and then our projected energy savings. So there's a grandfather clause. If we finish the construction prior to the end of the year, we have a higher savings. We built that into the bids that went out. So we're wanting to be conservative and present it both ways. What's the best case scenario for savings and what's the worst case? Best case scenario is that we save $7.5 million over 25 years for energy costs. Worst case scenario would be about $5.3 million. So in prior meetings, the board expressed concern of not wanting to have a negative cash flow in any single year, which would require payment of the solar panels to be drawn from the general fund. Although the scenarios from the elementary school do have years in which the out-of-pocket expense exceed the savings from the high school exceed those years' expenses, resulting in a net positive cash flow. So we achieved that goal if you look at district-wide savings versus just the elementary school or the high school. There is a 10% contingency included above the construction pricing which was received, and there is a performance guarantee. I've got Tom Willard from SAGE is here, so if we have any specific questions on the data, he can delve into the details. But in general, we just wanted to talk about this and give you a chance to absorb and think about all the data. Staff is recommending that we proceed with all of the sites. Are there any questions or discussion?
One other thing before Mr. Willard has any further information to share with us. So part of this presentation is teeing up the board meeting, the special board meeting on May 10th. So that would be the item where, based on your comfort with the information presented tonight, we would come back with an action item and ask for your approval.
Can we just go back for 1 second? All sites except middle school and district office / Liberty, right?
Right, correct. And so the actual panels at the middle school were able to utilize a program called NEMA, and the panels would actually be placed at the high school, not at Mary Farmer, but we get benefit for energy savings across both schools. At the middle school, the site, because of all the fields and everything, it's not very advantageous without really impacting some of those programs. And then here at the district office, there isn't a lot in Liberty. There's not a lot of space that really says you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck for the expense that you put out.
Can you define NEMA again real quick, just back to our acronyms?
Yeah.
It's net energy metering aggregation. So it's where you're combining meters from two different sites that are adjacent to each other and using solar on one of those sites to offset the cost of energy on that adjacent site. Okay.
So my question is, we had a large amount of money at the end of 25 years if we just took the Mary Farmer High School and the middle school group and not did the elementary schools. And the way technology is going, and just looking at history of solar panels and cells over the last few years and the expected large improvements over the next few years, why do we want to put them at the elementary schools and have a whole lot less savings over the next 25 years, and hold off and wait till technology and better output of the solar cells and even if it's the same cost or a lower cost,
So I was talking with Tom about this earlier today, and I think really it could go on, you could argue it both ways. Right now there's a lot of contingencies in wanting to be conservative, so that in wanting to not present to the board or to anybody unrealistic expectations, there are quite a few contingencies built into the cost savings. Again, wanting to not come up short and not realizing the anticipated savings. And so given that, and that it's, the savings for the elementary schools are $400,000 up to $1 million over 25 years. And then if you consider, well, it's we have a fairly high amount of contingencies built into that, so it may actually come in higher. I think it's and then you also get the benefit of the elementary schools, like Matthew Turner would have covered parking. That's kind of a perk to their teachers, and the presence within the community of energy savings and those items. I think you could argue it either way if you felt strongly that, no, we don't want to go, we want to wait, and maybe there's something else that drives it in the future. So I don't think that staff is opposed if the board felt strongly that this, maybe we wait, maybe we don't do both, but I think there's potential for savings right now in the ways that you look at it for the first 25 years. And I can let Tom talk to that a little as well.
Sure. So there are a couple of different things that are going on in the industry right now which are pushing prices up a little bit. Number one, there's less competition in the industry, and you've probably heard that the largest player out there, SunEdison, went bankrupt last year. Solar City was bought by Tesla, and they're actually cleaning up their act. Those were the two real players that are really pressuring the market prices. So we're seeing the prices drift up right now for solar PV systems. There are a couple of other things that are happening that we think will have a real major impact on the value of the energy that's produced by these systems going forward. And one of them is that the tariffs are being restructured by the utilities. And so right now there's a rate case for PG&E before it. Sage is actually doing testimony for that rate case, and we're expecting the value of energy from PV systems to drop about 10 to 20% just on the tariff changes. And then there are also changes to the time of use rates. And I don't know if we've talked about this in the past here, but the two scenarios where if we get it done by the end of the year, we're actually grandfathering those time of use rates on the time of use periods that you have today for 10 years. If you don't get it done by the end of the year, you don't get that grandfathering, and it affects the value of the project another 15%. So that's a big thing. And then in 2020, the investment tax credit, which drives a lot of the financing around, you're not really exposed to it because you're going to be buying this one for cash. But if you wait into the future, most districts actually buy these things using third-party financing so that they can get to those tax credits. The tax credits are stepping down in 2020, beginning 2020. And so they're going to step down over a 3-year period from 30% of the value, the cost of the system to install it, to 10% over 3 years. That's going to have a big impact on the financed
system prices. And so we're seeing those two things are pushing in the other direction. There's a lot of renewables that's going into the grid right now, and the CPUC right now is about to introduce regulations on inverters that allow PG&E to actually turn off your system in the middle of the afternoon when it's producing the most, so that they don't have overgeneration on the grid. So a number of different things. It's really resettling. And so, again, the crystal ball is really difficult, but we know that the panel prices are going to continue to come down. The installed costs are coming down. There's other things pushing in the other direction over the next 10 years.
I had a quick question for the trustees. So this is a shift for us, right? I just want to make sure that that's clear. Like last time when we were talking based on our analysis, we thought what looked more favorable economically over a 25-year period, as you pointed out, was just to do the high school with Farmer, because we were talking about this in greater detail again this morning. So maybe you talk about that a little bit more, just so that that part is clear to folks, because what we are presenting to you now is that the greater cost savings is to include the other elementary schools, and I just wanted to make sure that part made sense. Then when we include them now, that's actually a better cost savings for us over 25 years than the previous recommendation.
Dr. Young, is that because the bids were lower than we expected?
Great, well, thank you. Can you, Ms. Egan, can you respond to that?
Do you want to go to the next slide, Betty, please? The page. Yep, the Borrego summary. So I don't have our prior slide, and I'm going to look to Tom to help maybe fill in some of the numbers. I know that our quotes came in lower than the estimates, and at the original review, when we looked at them at the prior meetings, the elementary schools, my simplistic term, if you look at the far right-hand column, they were red all the way through. There wasn't a saving to do any of the elementary schools. So it was an easy answer. It didn't pin out. Under the savings, so can you go to one more, please? Thank you. And then can you also zoom into the lower right-hand corner of the chart? Yeah, please. And this is in you guys' packet too, if you need a little bit better. Yep. Right. So under the, let's see, I'm sorry, we're on REC, so what can you change to Borrego, please?
Well, in essence, the Borrego bid came in much lower than their competitor, which made the option of including the other elementary schools much more favorable than just the original option of the high school and Farmer.
And I'm sorry, but can you go to the next page? It's just like, no more requests. Is there a page 2 of this document? That's okay. There you go. So this is the page, one more, page 3. So the savings on the
of the Borrego savings summer, the first.
Yeah. So this savings that she's showing up there, the $470,173, that's the worst case scenario. So that assumes that we do not meet the deadline of December 31st. The way that the bids went out is that we are asking the contractors to meet it, and we had them put together a preliminary schedule and showing us how they could meet that. So it's all intentions that we will try to meet that. So, but even that being said, things happen. You don't always make what you were striving for. So we asked Sage to help us project it both ways. So we're not, I know this still isn't, we're looking for the one
as they're looking for the page. So basically with the elementary schools, the bid's about $1.6 million. So, you know, the high school's a $3 million solar project,
That's it.
plus some contingencies. And then the 3 elementary schools is 1.6 million, plus some contingencies, maybe 10% or so. So I think right now with the bid, they bid those 2 projects separately. And I think we're getting the economy of scale. So because they're doing the big high school one, and they're gonna have already sent out their troops to install, it's gonna be a lot less expensive for them to go over to the other elementary schools. And they apparently reflected that in their elementary bid at 1.6 million. So if we weren't to do that, and we were to do that in a couple years or whatever, prices go up, and you're going to have those startup costs. The term's escaping me right now. What you call when you
The mobilization and everything.
mobile up. So we have that. They also mentioned the tariffs earlier. So right now, the reason why we're having a special or a board meeting on May 10th next week is so that we can award the contracts and they can get going. So based on the May 10th award of the solar contracts, we have timelines which show the solar contractors can complete it before the end of the year. So we get grandfathered in to the better rates.
Yeah.
If we don't do the elementary schools right now, what we know is that the rules get tougher and the rates get worse for us. So I think the spreadsheets that we have show a range, if we do everything on the worst case scenario of saving about $5.3 million over 25 years, or a better case scenario of about $7.5 million over those 25 years. So either case, we do come out ahead, but I think it's kind of now's the time to do the elementary schools if we have all the information that we need to move forward and take basically advantage of the mobilization of the solar project at the high school.
At the economy of scales. And to, you were asking about the prior numbers. So just to talk generically, previously the elementary schools didn't pan out. There was no reason to even consider it. And now, depending on conservative or how you either say $425,000 or up to $1 million in doing them. So there is some benefit in considering that. And as Tim said, you're going to lose some of those opportunities with time.
So, and I'm not sure which one of the Borrego ones we're on, but all of them looks like that the elementary schools will be losing money, but the high school savings will capture that. And so district-wide, we will not be having a negative outflow.
The elementary schools, so if you look at the document that has Borrego Solar, Joe Henderson, Robert Semple, and Matthew Turner, and at the note highlighted at the bottom says it assumes construction complete in time for the gain.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So then you see the columns on net savings. The first 6 years are in the red. The amount that they're in the red, the high school savings exceed that amount. The next 5 years you're in the black. On year 12 you are in the red, and that's because they built in a one-time cost of doing maintenance. And then the rest of the years you're in the black. So it's overall, accumulatively, it is a savings under that scenario of $1 million. And then in the worst case scenario, overall, you're still at a savings of $400,000.
So what is the cumulative project cash flow column on the far right-hand side? Cumulative, yes.
Right, so it just takes each year and adds it up.
So we're in the red all the way down to year 20 or 18 or whatever it is.
Right, in that scenario, because of the costs up front, so that first year, if we're looking at the same page here.
I'm on page 2.
You've got it there, Betty.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
3 and 4. I have it all in the red all the way down, almost all the way down as
Well, yeah, if I look at my.
Okay, let me jump in here. So the red that you're looking at, that is just the 3 elementary school project. So if you were to combine those cumulative totals with the high school, you will not have any red, any negative in any year.
I think when we come back on the 10th, maybe we have or if it's not here, is there a column that would show that? Because we're showing them separately. So, but yeah, does that make sense? How they're
It would make sense if everything was in all one slide versus 5 attachments, and you're trying to figure out which one we're on.
I think it would really help because I'm sitting here going, and tell me again why I want to do this. We're talking about declining enrollment and budget going down, and I'm looking every year and I'm seeing we're going to be short cash flow 350, 250,000. So it would help if you could pull it together for us so that we could say you're going to be a negative here, but it's going to be a big plus here. So at the end, you're a plus.
So
Because right now I'm questioning the validity of this.
So don't question the validity of this. You have spreadsheets here that is for the high school and Farmer that is positive throughout. It's page 1 or page 2. Page 3 and page 4 are just the 3 other elementary schools, and the earlier years are negative, but in no case is that negative bigger than the high school. We're not asking you to do the 3 elementary schools by themselves. That's not an option for you guys.
But all I'm saying
It's
is
either
this is hard.
okay. We can come back, but I don't want you to think that these numbers, they just haven't been added together so you can see it on one piece of paper.
I think it's the nature of I think it's just an interface thing. Actually, it's the nature of the wide. Not to spend a lot of time on this specifically, because I mean I appreciate your work, but it's on the computer itself. It's really hard to see what if you're looking on the right column, you can't really see what the chart actually is. So maybe if we printed them out, I think that would be a solution too. And then
yeah, that's a great point. And again, just to reiterate Mr. Rahill's point that if you look at the elementary scenario, excluding high school and Farmer, the numbers are red. We would not do that. But when you put the whole thing together, the numbers are not red. So, but we'll come back with an easier way on May 10th for you guys to look at that so we can decide. Does that work?
Yeah. Just curious if it's possible the high school.
It's in Exhibit A.
The high school and Farmer is it's 3 million, and then it's an additional. It's 3.5 million roughly. It's on page 1 on the upper left-hand corner. You see $3 million, and then you see 448,163. So that's showing your funding sources. The total cost would be 3 million plus the 448, so roughly 3.5 million. And it's showing that the first 3 million would be funded through our CEC loan, and the other 448,000 would be through our CREBS loan, which is a loan that comes through the state at low interest rates.
On a different point, on Exhibit A, we talk about the phases and costs for each phase and comparisons between the 3 bidders. And then we have soft costs and project contingencies. Could you tell us what is in that soft cost discussion? And the contingency is the 10% over under discussion, but what goes into the soft cost numbers?
Sure. So the soft cost numbers are things like your inspector in special testing that goes into it. So site analysis that the district typically buys. SAGE's costs, so outside consultants, legal, and all of that is put together with the 10% contingency that the district had us tack onto the top of it. So it's roughly 3% of soft costs and 10% contingency.
Yeah, I think that
8.5% soft costs.
I think he tossed in another 5% contingency on top of that. That's what's in there. There's another 5% contingency.
Exhibit A, solar quote summary.
So it's from their attachments, Betty. It's not from.
Yeah, it's so 8.5% soft cost, 10% project contingency is what they have.
Oh.
There. 3.5 and 15.
I think there's a total of 15% contingency built into this thing. It's a lot of contingency. Okay, so the soft costs are 3.5%. And then there are contingencies built in. We typically have a 5% contingency that was built into the project originally, and the district asked us to provide another 10%. So what you're looking at is 15% contingency total.
So we'll just clear up the clarification numbers below before by May 10th, so we know what's in there.
So it's a lot easier for you to see.
8.5% in soft costs. I thought was high, so that helps explain that.
Well, this has to go through DSA. Do we have pre-approved DSA packages that we be submitting, or?
Right. So the vendor, Borrego, if you choose to go with them, will do the DSA submission, and the carports, all the mounting is pre-check, so it's an over-the-counter. Takes about 2 months now to get an appointment at DSA, but it usually can be done in 1 day. Okay. And so that's the whole project's been designed around that.
And so if we approve next week, it gets awarded 2 months to get through DSA. So now we're in July, and they say they can have it all done to meet the grandfather date.
Yes. So to meet that grandfather date, they have to be substantially complete, which means that your IOR, the DSA inspector, signs off on it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily plugged in and running. The PG&E might not sign that off yet by then, but that's what it is. Your IOR is signed off on it.
Capable to be producing electricity upon throwing the switch for transfer.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Rexdale. Okay, we're going to move to 13.1. As soon as my computer jumps back here for me. Discussion and just a second. Discussion and possible action to award the contract for the Benicia High School fire alarm upgrade to the lowest responsive bidder was Brockman and Woody Electric. And okay, there, my computer's not running. It's stuck on 12.4, so I can read the bottom. I just don't have anything there.
So if you don't have access from up there, you can look on there. So, we identified the Benicia High School fire alarm upgrades as a priority for bond funding. The project was taken to public bid. Contractors were required to be pre-qualified in order to be eligible to bid. We had 4 contractors pre-qualify, of which 3 submitted a bid. The low bid was $1,947,800 by Bachman and Woody. The second bid was $1,975,040, and the high bid was $2,473,032. The project engineer's estimate was $2,030,166, putting the bids at just over $82,000, just under the estimate by $82,000. The first and second bids were only $27,240 apart, which is only a 1.3% difference. That's really tight for this size of project. We feel this is a good indicator that the bids received were competitive and a good value for the district. Our electrical engineer has worked on successful projects with the low bidder and feels confident in their work. And they are also the firm who installed the fire alarm system at the middle school and are also working on the stadium. If approved, the construction can begin in non-student occupied spaces as early as mid-May, with construction completion date in mid-October. Staff has met with the high school principal and vice principal and are coordinating closely with them to minimize impact. So we're here tonight asking the board for a motion to approve staff to award the bid for the high school fire alarm upgrades to the low bidder in the amount of $1,947,800.
I was gonna ask about their history here in the district, because I know they've done work, so, but you already covered that. Thank you. Was there any major concerns from, now that we've had the fire alarm in the middle school? Any things that,
So the middle school, we were really happy with their performance. The overall change orders was right at 3%. There were a couple of items that weren't really related to their work, but tangential that we came across in the middle school that we ended up hiring actually a different company just because it's a different specialty, but it's tangential to the install. So we, one of them was replacing the flow switches. When you do the new fire alarm, then all of a sudden it's monitoring the flow switches on the sprinkler, and you start getting alarms that you didn't know before. At the high school, similar to the middle school, our system is old enough that even though it might not be giving false alarms right now, you put in a new system, it's at the end of its lifetime. And if it doesn't give you false alarms right now, it's probably going to start in the next year or two. So we did an additive alternate bid, and that's included in the requested award amount to replace all of the flow switches. And then the other thing we came across at the middle school was PIV valves, which again are related to the water flow for the sprinklers. And we ended up having to replace some of them at the middle school, and so we included that in the bid too. We felt it's a better value to the district to get those prices with your bids, because then you have a negotiated price that's set up front than if you have to come back during construction and get pricing.
Will we do the same thing, Roxanne, where they're going to work on a double system for a while for the kids?
Yeah, so we will not have fire watches. The existing system will remain in place. It'll stay there until the new system is tested and operational. So we'll have unilateral things, and then they'll pull most of the wires from the old system. There are a few of the buildings where the wires share a conduit for the, I think it's the HVAC or some other system. And so there was concern that if we pull them at that point, which is, it's great for maintenance, but if you pull them and all of a sudden you disrupt this HVAC system, you could cause a whole bunch of other problems. So in those locations, we worked with the maintenance staff and identified them and said, don't pull the wires. I mean, we're going to abandon the system, but we will leave that stuff, infrastructure there. So in the process of taking it out, you don't end up disturbing other things.
any other questions, comments? Is there any public questions or comments? Okay. Do we have a recommendation?
A motion that we award the contract to Bachman and Woody as presented.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 13.2, consideration and approval of resolution number 16-17-15, non-reelection of probationary employees. Dr. Gardner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I guess it's appropriate in my last board meeting that I have the last agenda item, so here we go. So as the board's aware, the district employs a number of probationary employees each year. Education Code 44920.21 and 44954B state that the district is allowed to release probationary employees within their 2-year probationary status without cause, as long as they are notified prior to May 15th of their 2nd year. The attached resolution confirms that the employee listed will be non-reemployed, effective with the 2017-18 school year, and authorizes that the superintendent and or his designee give final notice of this action on behalf of the board as required in Education Code, and recommendation is for approval.
Do we have any board comments or questions? Do we have any public questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve resolution number 16-17-15 as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Holguin?
Yes.
Trustee Monette? President Wing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'd like just to recognize Michael again. It's his last meeting, and I will adjourn